What's happening? Thanks for joining me on this Friday. It is very much appreciated getting you ready for the weekend. We'll get to the Bruins in a little bit, but let's first start off with a rookie that is testing the new Patriots approach. Jerod Mayo has talked about connecting with the players, connecting with them emotionally, establishing relationships, borderline friendships before getting on them and teaching them the X's and O's. It's a new way at Gillette Stadium. Elliott Wolf said a month or two ago that they're going to be less hard-ass when it comes to dealing with players and dealing with the roster. A simple example of this is when we saw the rookies come in over the last week or so, and we saw them getting jerseys with regular numbers. Drake May with his regular number 10, not 50 or, some outrageous number for the quarterback as Bill Belichick used to do. It's a small example, but it means something. This new coaching staff, this new front office led by Elliott Wolf, and I know they're pretty much all the same people outside of Alonzo Highsmith, but they are going to be able to do their jobs differently than they did with Belichick. And it's rather obvious, listening to them and watching them work, that they want the relationship between coach and player to be different. They want to give the player more leeway, more latitude. And well, Javon Baker, who was drafted by the Patriots last week, he's taken some of that latitude. He's gone on social media, and he has had lots and lots to say. After he was picked in the 4th round, he posted an Instagram video, right? Talking about how people screwed up. I'm not going to share the language. I might get kicked off of YouTube, but we all saw the video. Then he had the wheelchair line, which I thought was funny. Some people thought was offensive, but he said it. And then there was this IG post yesterday from Baker when he's saying, "No way in bleeping America, 10 receivers better than me, out of your bleeping mind. You ain't going to outwork me, though. Tell you that much. I don't give a bleep how hard I'm breathing. I'm going to go again." So that is Javon Baker on Instagram yesterday. And I'm not going to treat this like it's the end of the world, okay? This is not the end of the world. I am not going to overreact. I'm not sitting here saying, oh, well, he went way above and beyond what you should do as a football player. It's none of that. It's none of that. And I have no issue with having a personality. I have no issue with having confidence. As a matter of fact, especially when you're a receiver or a cornerback, we know these guys are built differently. We know their confidence level. We know their swag. People call them at some points divas, right? So we know part of this is being a wide receiver, having that confidence, telling the rest of the world they don't know what the hell they're talking about. You are the guy. You're the man. You're on an island. You're going to do what you got to do to make sure you get the job done. So I have no issue with personality. I have no issue with confidence. I have no issue with Javon Baker having that chip on his shoulder because he was drafted in the 4th round. And this is not an overreaction. This is not the end of the world. However, it's interesting to see how the new coaching staff is going to deal with this. Are they going to deal with this? Because we know, and this is part of the science experiment that we're going through this offseason, right? All the changes from Belichick to Mayo. And people thought that Mayo was going to be the same thing as Belichick. Remember that? Some people were saying that to us, which was comical because it's rather obvious that Mayo and Belichick are much, much, much different and see treatment of players much differently to go along with a lot of other things. But we know what Bill Belichick would do, right? As soon as that first Instagram video came out, Belichick would have been on the phone with Javon Baker, or somebody else would have been on the phone with Baker and telling him to calm down, relax, settle it. And if Baker continued to do this, if the second video surfaced, Belichick might delete the dude's IG, right? He might say, not on our watch. That's not what the Patriots do. Do your job. All those things, right? So it's going to be fascinating to see how Jerod Mayo and company handle Baker. And if they decide to handle him, this is the first test for Jerod Mayo. And it's a test because we need to see what kind of latitude he's going to give his players. Saying you're going to treat them as human beings and you are going to make that connection first and foremost and trying to build that relationship in that way, I think is fine. I have no issue with what Mayo has said. I have no issue with the decor that is hanging on the walls now at Foxborough. No issue with it at all. But this situation is going to be the first time that Mayo has to deal with a player that is going a little bit outside of the boundaries when we talk about handling his business compared to prior years, compared to what Bill Belichick's Patriots would look like and sound like. So this should give us an indication as to who head coach Mayo truly is. How much latitude is he willing to give players? Is he willing to look at the Javon Baker videos, almost laugh at them, or maybe he even loves them and says, I love seeing that from a guy. I love that from our rookie. I want that chip on his shoulder. I want him talking trash. Is that what Mayo's going to say to himself when he sees these videos? Is that what he has said to himself? Because there's no doubt he has seen these videos with everybody else in the facility. So how much latitude is Mayo willing to give his players? Because this is a precedent, right? You are setting a precedent. Baker going out there and doing what he's doing on IG. Again, I don't think it's a big deal. I like the confidence. I like the chip. I like the personality. But if you're Mayo, if you allow Baker to continue to send out these videos, are you confident that Baker is going to continue to do these somewhat responsibly, right? Or is he going to start pushing the envelope more and more and more? Other players see what Baker is doing. Are they going to start jumping on IG and talking, about things behind the scenes and going maybe a little bit too far, maybe a bit too above and beyond? So it's going to be very, very interesting. And I'm curious to see. I'm curious to see if the Baker IGs, and I'm curious to see if him talking the way he's talked since he's been drafted by the Patriots, I'm interested to see if any of that changes. If Mayo goes to him and says, look, man, I love your confidence, but you have not caught a single pass in the NFL. So relax with that. Settle down a little bit. I'm all for your personality. I'm all for your chip on the shoulder, but I think you're talking a little bit too much before you play an NFL game. Is that what Mayo's going to say to Baker? Or is this, hey, handcuffs off, no limits, let the young man be the young man, and we're going to ride with it? Because that will tell us how Mayo will handle the rest of this team. All right, don't forget to give us that thumbs up. More thumbs means more eyeballs. Let's beat that algorithm on YouTube. Subscribe as well. We have hit 3,200 subscribers. Thanks to every single one of you that have subscribed. Let's continue to do that. The goal is 3,500. It's going to be a slow roll to that number, but let's continue to pound the like button, those thumbs up, and let's continue to subscribe, rate, and review on Spotify and Apple Pods. All right, before I continue on Javon Baker and how Jerod Mayo is going to handle this situation, Ryan jumps in. $5 super chat. Thank you, Ryan. If you want to jump to the front of the line with your comment or your question, you can send a super chat. If they aren't winning, it won't matter what things they change. Hashtag just win. Yeah, I mean, look, if you're winning, a lot of things are allowed, right? Remember Antonio Brown? Antonio Brown, towards the end of his Steelers career, he was going on social media live in the locker room. He was saying more things, doing more things. Now, eventually, AB got a little bit out of control, and we all saw how that ended. But it wasn't as big of a deal in Pittsburgh as they were winning, and Mike Tomlin was able to control the situation. That's why I find the Javon Baker stuff interesting, because Mayo is going to handle things much differently than Belichick. That much is clear. But this is before the season. This is before you have the chance to win or lose games. So does Mayo nip this stuff, bud, and say enough is enough, Javon? Let's focus on football now. Let's, we don't need to shoot an IG story. We don't need to do a video every time you're out there on the practice field. Or does Mayo love this? Does he embrace it? Does he want his players to talk about it before being about it? So this is more a case study in Jerod Mayo's leadership and how he's going to handle this football team than it is an indictment on Javon Baker. Again, because I don't think what Baker's done is that big of a deal. But how will Mayo handle it? That's what we can learn from here. We can learn how the new head coach is going to run his football team, how he's going to run this program, and if he's going to allow guys to be more individual than team-oriented at times. And really, it's just a balance, right? If you're Mayo, you've got to strike the balance. How much do you allow somebody like Baker to be the individual, to show his personality, to do what he's going to do, versus him becoming a distraction? Where's that balance? Where's the line? Where does Mayo draw that line? I'm curious. Does he just let Baker be who Baker is? Because when Baker shows up to rookie minicamp in a week, they're going to have a conversation, right? If they haven't had one already. And if Baker starts to become a distraction, that's not needed. It's not necessary. So where does Mayo draw that line between individual and distraction? How much voice do you truly give to the player? We're all learning new things here. We know how Belichick ran the ship. How is Mayo going to run the ship? How is he going to address it? Will he address it? Did he already address it? You have to imagine if Mayo got on the phone or somebody spoke with Baker after the first IG video, then they obviously did not have much of an issue with the video because he put out the second one. Or did Mayo just wait to see if there was going to be a second one to come out and then contact Baker? Or he just doesn't care. So how will it be addressed? Will it be addressed? Will the veterans say anything? That's another interesting thing to me, right? Over the last quarter of a century, we've talked about the Patriot way. We've talked about players, veterans, telling the young guys, this is how you're supposed to act. This is what you're supposed to do. This is the Patriot way. As we know, there's no longer the Patriot way. This is the Mayo way. So our veterans, are they comfortable approaching rookies if they think they're doing a little bit too much? If Kendrick Bourne thinks that Baker's being a little bit extra, does he talk? Does he address that with Baker? Are veterans comfortable to do that? Or is everybody just trying to figure this out right now? I mean, I don't think it's the wild, wild west, but is everybody in that locker room trying to figure out, all right, what is this Mayo era going to look like and feel like? What are we allowed to say? What are we allowed to do? Where are the boundaries? When is it too much? Are they still trying to get a feel for it? Is Mayo still trying to get a feel for it? Is he saying to himself, I'll know it when I see it. I'll know it when I feel it. So all of these things are interesting. When we see a player do something differently, do things that we would not have seen with Bill Belichick, it's going to be very, very interesting to watch how it plays out with Mayo. Is Mayo going to be too friendly with his players? Or is he going to step in and be that head coach and say, enough is enough? And Matthew Slater. Does Matthew Slater get involved? You know, we found out that Slater is a full-time member of this coaching staff, of this organization. Is this a perfect case for a Matthew Slater? Is this like his job where he might have the conversation with Baker? And that's how he helps advise Mayo. So this also could tell us a decent amount about Matthew Slater's role within this coaching staff. All right. I want to talk about competition, wide receiver competition, right? Baker will be part of that. There was another signing yesterday after a signing the day before that continues to ramp up the level of competition. I want to get to that in just a minute. But before we do, the Nick Cattle Show is brought to you by Warzone Paintball and Airsoft. Warzone has 9 maps on 30-plus acres of land. We're talking multiple villages, hilltop forts. They've got paintball. They've got airsoft. They've got kid versions of paintball and airsoft, something for every age group starting at 6+. You just show up with jeans, good shoes, long sleeve shirt. They will take care of the rest. Casual, low-key, great staff. If you enjoy paintball, if you enjoy airsoft, swing on by Warzone Paintball and Airsoft in North Kingston, Rhode Island. You can give them a call, 401-228-6366. 401-228-6366. Tell them the Nick Cattle Show sent you. All right, let's talk about competition, shall we? Because it's obvious that this is a major, major theme for the Patriots in 2024. Javon Baker will be part of that wide receiver competition. Yesterday, the Patriots signed kicker Joey Sly. Here's some information on Sly. 28 years old. This is from Doug Kyde. He was released by the Jaguars on Tuesday. Started his career with the Giants as an undrafted free agent out of Virginia Tech. Spent time with the Panthers, Texans, Niners, and Commanders. 82.3% of his field goal attempts have been converted. 88.5% of his extra point attempts. His longest field goal came last season. It was 61 yards for the Commanders. Yada, 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 yada. So Joey Sly comes in, signs with the Patriots. Going to obviously compete with Chad Ryland, who was awful last year. And this continues the theme for Elliott Wolf and Mayo. They have created countless camp battles. And I love it. Just look at quarterback, right? You've got Drake May taking on Jacoby Brissett to see who's going to be the starting quarterback this season. You also drafted Joe Milton in the 6th round, so you have competition down the ladder. You have Milton competing against Bailey Zappi and Rourke. So who wins that battle as the possible third quarterback? So the quarterback room is going to be competitive. Do you know how many wide receivers are on the Patriots roster right now? 11. They have 11 wide receivers on the roster. It is a roll call. I'll go through them quickly. You've got Polk, Baker, Juju, Pop, Bourne. You also have Tyquan Thornton. You have Booty. You've got Jalen Reagor. You've got Luther. You have Kawan Baker. I mean, you just have a bunch of guys. You've got a bunch of guys on this roster. Bunch of them. So, I mean, you got KJ. You've got 11 dudes. You've got 11 wide receivers on this roster. Polk and Baker are going to come in. They're going to push. They're going to make that push. Tyquan Thornton, you know for a fact when Tyquan was watching the draft and he saw Baker get drafted, that's a message being sent. For Juju Smith-Schuster, when Jalen Polk is drafted in the 2nd round, that is a message being sent to Juju. All of these veterans, they're being put on notice. KJ Osborne is somebody who is, he just signed a contract, but he's going to have to fight and compete to get on that football field. Osborne's going to have to deal with Baker and Polk and Pop Douglas and Juju. You're going to see all of this play out. It is going to be a fight in that wide receiver room. Not a bad fight, not a literal fight, but they are going to have to fight for their position. You are no longer going to walk onto that field and know that you're going to be the guy. And, when you look at the last couple of years and how the offense was handled, we pretty much knew the top 3 or 4 receivers. We knew. I wasn't happy with the top 3 or 4 receivers. I'm sure you weren't happy with the top 3 or 4 receivers, but we knew. We knew Juju was a major part of the plan last year. We knew Devontae Parker was going to be a major part of the plan last season. We knew that. Kendrick Bourne. This year's different. Yes, Pop. You can feel really good about Pop Douglas playing a lot of football this year. Kendrick Bourne, we don't know because of the ACL. Osborne, maybe because they signed him, but they also just invested 2nd and 4th round picks at the same position. So this is a heavy competition at wide receiver. I think it's safe to say, maybe they'll surprise us that, Kawan Baker and Luther and Reagor and Kayshon Boutte, those guys are likely on the outside looking in. But if Juju wants to stay here and keep his career going, he's going to have to show up. He's going to have to play well. He's going to have to practice well. He's going to have to force the hand of Mayo and Wolf to make that call. And I love it. You're coming off of a 4-win season. We should have this type of heavy competition in camp. We should have Smith-Schuster looking over his shoulder. We should have KJ Osborne battling Kendrick Bourne and Jalen Polk. We should have the rookie receivers pushing these veterans for opportunity. We should have Pop Douglas taking the next step in his development and battling for his spot to hold on to that territory. That's the way it should be. So I'm thrilled with filling up that wide receiver room. I'm thrilled when you like this program on YouTube and when you subscribe and when you rate and review. Don't forget to do that. How about tackle? Offensive line, offensive tackle. That's another position that we're going to see a bunch of competition. I mean, just look at the tackle room. You've got Owenu, you've got Anderson, you've got Wallace, you've got Lowe, you've got Wheatley, you've got Stuber, and they can still add. They could still go out and sign a veteran if they want to. So who's going to be the starting left tackle? Okorafor is going to have to battle, right? Okorafor is going to have to battle Wallace. If Calvin Anderson wants to keep his job and become the swing tackle, he's got to battle the other guys like Vidarian Lowe and Wheatley and Stuber and maybe even Wallace. I'm not telling you that the wide receiver room is perfect. Obviously, it's not. We are missing that number one alpha. And I'm not telling you I'm excited about left tackle. I'm not. I've shared my concerns on that in prior podcasts. I hope that one of Okorafor and Wallace can actually play on the left side and that the coaching staff is correct. And I'm going to give those guys the benefit of the doubt to prove that to be the case. But all I'm saying is you at least have competition. You at least have numbers. You at least can sift through and see what that Wallace versus Okorafor battle looks like at left tackle. And Calvin Anderson may be a little bit more motivated because of the Wallace draft pick. Look at guard. Same thing. Same thing. Cole Strange might not be healthy. If he is healthy, whenever he is healthy, does he get right back on the field? Or does he have to battle for that position? Remember, Cole Strange was a Bill Belichick pick. Belichick was calling the shots. It's not like Strange walks out onto the field and he's guaranteed a starting spot at left guard. This is a new regime, new coaching staff, entirely new offensive staff. So, Cole Strange, Sidy Sow, Antonio Mafi, Jake Andrews, Leverett, Robinson, all of those guys are battling for two spots. You want to push Sidy Sow, so you sign Leverett. You draft Robinson. You want to push Cole Strange whenever he gets healthy and comes back, so you do that. I mean, this level of competition, even all the way down to the third tight end on this roster, you have competition. We can safely say that Hunter Henry and Austin Hooper are going to be on this team, right? But then you've got the third tight end battle. You've got Petway, you've got Wilcox, and you've got Bell, who was drafted in the 7th round. So they're going to force this competition. And I was thinking about this. How many guaranteed starters do you have right now on offense? How many guys would you say are guaranteed to start week 1? Again, it's all given the health. But how many guaranteed starters are currently on this roster that you know for a fact? David Andrews, confident that David Andrews will be the starting center. Again, the two tight ends, Henry and Hooper, I think we can say are guaranteed to be out there in two tight end sets. I think Hooper is your second guy. Who else? Ramondre Stevenson. Stevenson, I would say, is your guaranteed starting running back. Mike Owenu is guaranteed to start at right tackle, especially after the comments he made yesterday. So when you start to look at this, left tackle, undecided. Left guard, undecided. Right guard, even though I'd strongly lean towards Sidy Sow, I would say still undecided. It's not a given. The wide receiver room, they're just going to see what shakes out. So you only have a handful of guys that are guaranteed to start on this offense, which is precisely the way it should be after how bad the offense has been the last 2 years. Now, I would also lean strongly towards, somebody like Kendrick Bourne. You could also lean towards Pop Douglas. Strong lean towards those two guys. But Bourne's coming off of the ACL. And Pop Douglas, I think, will still be forced to earn his spot. I don't think they're going to guarantee him the spot on day one of this camp. So it just breeds competition. And that's the way it should be. Offense has been terrible coming off of a 4-win season. That's the way it should be. And it's not just the offense. It's not just Mayo and company challenging the offensive veterans to step up or step out. There are some competitions going on defensively as well. This is going to be a hungry locker room, a frustrated after a 4-win season, out to prove a point, locker room that is going to be feisty and competing at almost every spot on offense. And then you look at defense. Outside cornerback number 2. Can somebody wrestle that away from Jonathan Jones? Isaiah Bolden coming back from injury. Can he wrestle it away? Alex Austin, can he pop? How about Sean Wade? How about Marcellus Dial? Can somebody take that outside corner gig from Jonathan Jones, and then Jonathan Jones can slide inside to play slot? Maybe he could slide to the back and play some free safety. What is that competition going to look like? Speaking of slot cornerback, who's going to stand up there? Big time year for Marcus Jones. This is a prove-it year for Marcus Jones. Can he show up? Can he stay healthy? Can he play himself into a starting role? Or at least somebody that comes in and plays that slot when needed, which is a lot now in today's NFL. Does Wade get a shot at slot cornerback? Does Dial get a shot? Again, if Jonathan Jones, if somebody steps up for the outside, does Jones slide in and play the slot? Free safety. That's another battle. Marte Mapu. Jerod Mayo has told us Mapu's going to be in the safety room. This is a chance for Marte Mapu to step up and play a lot of snaps this year. Joshua Bledsoe, been with the program for a number of years, seemingly has improved. Has he improved enough to take that gig? You can also throw Marcellus Dial out there as a possibility at free safety. Maybe they go with Kyle Duggar a little bit, which again, I want Duggar closer to the line of scrimmage, but do they put him back there for the sake of competition? Same thing can be asked about Jabril Peppers. Same thing with Marcus Jones. Do you put Marcus Jones in the slot, or do you move him around, try him at safety? Remember, when Marcus Jones was drafted, there were comparisons to the Honey Badger. Greg Cosell specifically said he could see Marcus Jones as a Tyrann Mathieu type of guy, type of safety. So you've got competition at the corner spots. You've got competition at free safety. This camp is going to be a lot of fun. I really believe this camp is going to be a lot of fun due to the draft picks, due to the competition in so many different spots. Obviously, Drake May and the quarterback story. But what Wolf and Mayo have built here is a team, is a roster that is going to compete with each other. And they're going to be looking at all of this. They're going to be charting it all. And they're going to be in a position to say, let's pick the guys that we believe in the most, the guys that have proved it, the guys that have earned it, that they deserve that spot. They're not going to be given anything. And I think for fans, that's going to be a lot of fun to watch play out. At least it should be. It should be fun to see Drake May versus Jacoby Brissett. See how that looks and feels. Jalen Polk, Juju Smith-Schuster. Does Juju say, that young guy's not taking my spot? Is Juju healthy enough to declare that? We don't know. Didn't look great last year. But this is going to be some of the young versus the old. This is going to be some massive competition. And that's exactly the kind of environment that should be built when you're coming off of a 4-win season. And when I did the podcast yesterday with Greg brought up the point. When you look at Green Bay, a lot of roster turnover. They're not afraid of getting rid of guys and trying new guys. So as we go through this camp process, as we go through this preseason evaluation, don't be surprised if certain guys are cut, they're let go, somebody else is brought in. Wouldn't be surprised if Juju Smith-Schuster is gone before minicamp. They might just cut him post June 1. We'll see. Or they might bring him in and have him compete against the younger receivers. The good thing is they have those options. All right, don't forget to give us that thumbs up on YouTube, subscribe, rate, and review. Also get the Patreon page, exclusive content. Going to make some changes at the Patreon page coming up in the next couple of weeks for those Patreon members. Might change up, might tweak some of the content there, but it's $5 a month, $1.25 a week. Patreon.com/Nick Cattle, Cattles. All right, let's end with the Bruins. Headed to a Game 7 on Saturday night. Jeremy Swayman is the only consistent force in this series. He's the only guy that is showing up night in and night out And yes, it's frustrating. It's borderline infuriating. Even though this was a bridge year for the Bruins, when you're up 3-1 and you have a chance to end the series, it's frustrating to watch some of their best players just not play well enough. And Swayman is the only guy that you can look at and say and believe he's going to show up tonight. He's going to give the Bruins his best. Now let's get some of the crap out of the way. It was an awful missed boarding call on Holmberg last night. Thought it was obvious. Low-rise numbers were squared up right to his face. Slams him in the back, face up against the glass. Thought that was a boarding call, missed it. Then you had a bad icing by McAvoy, inexcusable. That leads to a goal. All of a sudden, 1-0. Egregious missed call, bad icing. Next thing, a goal. Deflection off of McAvoy, gets by Swayman. Pasta. Oh, boy. David Pastrnak has to step up. And Coach Montgomery called him out after that game last night. He specifically called out Pasta as an individual and said he's got to be better. He's got to step up, and he has to be. Some lazy, careless, sloppy turnovers in the neutral zone. Sometimes just an utter lack of fight. And I'm not one of those people that believe that Pasta wasn't giving this team what he should be giving them during the regular season. I thought Pasta was playing the 200 pretty well. Both ends of the ice. Thought he was engaged. Thought he was playing hard. But you get to the postseason, you're trying to figure out, where is he? Pasta has to lead this group. He's your guy. Marchand has been pretty good this series. Early on in the series, he was great. Not as good the last couple games, but still. They have to rely on Pasta. Pasta has to do more. 2 goals, 2 assists. He's a -1 in this series. That's not getting it done. He has to be better. Game 7 tomorrow night, no excuses, in front of your home crowd. You are the goal scorer for this hockey team. You better show up tomorrow night. And this has been an issue with Pasta. So he's got to show up tomorrow night, or the season's over. Pavel Zacha. We talked about Zacha before the series began. Non-existent. He has not scored a single goal in his postseason career. Just nowhere to be found. Nowhere to be found. So you're getting nothing from Zacha, and you're not getting nearly enough from Pasta. McAvoy's been up and down. Lindholm has been mostly bad. How many soft turnovers from that guy in this series? I think Carlo's been good. We should give credit to Carlo. Carlo's been good. But man, DeBrusk started this series like a house of fire. It's kind of calmed down a little bit. But tomorrow night, it's all about your guys, right? It's about Swayman continuing to play as well as he's played between the pipes. It's about Pasta showing up and playing all 60 freaking minutes of that hockey game. It's about Zacha maybe doing something. It's about McAvoy standing up and playing consistently good hockey. Again, McAvoy's had stretches. He's had periods of very good play. So the true big guns of this team, that's what you rely on a Game 7. As good as Freddie's been, you can't rely on Frederick in a Game 7. If he does something, fantastic. But you rely on your number one dudes. You rely on your top guys, your most talented guys, the guys that are making the bank. The Pastas, the Marchands, the McAvoys, the Lindholms. Those guys have to step up and give you their best game of the series tomorrow night. And if they don't, they're going to lose. They're going to choke for a second straight year. And they don't. The one thing, without Bergeron especially, but they're getting their butts whooped at the dot over and over and over and over again, losing face-off after face-off after face-off. They have to be more competitive at the dot. It's not like Toronto is this great team at the face-off circle. That's not, something that we looked at and go, oh man, they're going to have a gigantic advantage at the face-off. Bruins got to do a better job there. Am I confident? Of course I'm not confident. I have no confidence that they win tomorrow night. I certainly hope that they win tomorrow night, but I have no confidence that they win tomorrow night. Hopefully their best show up. I also want to thank Jack Edwards. I talked about Mike Gorman yesterday on the podcast and how Mike helped me when I was younger, getting through some not so great times and weekends of my younger life, my family life. I would sit down and find solace on a Friday night watching Mike and Tommy do a game, and it would really kind of balance me out, my almost moment of zen. Jack Edwards. People might not love the way he did his job at all times, and there are many critics to how he did it, and there are some critics even here in Boston to how Jack did his job. Jack was passionate. He loved this hockey team. He loved the job that he did, and he truly cared every single second that he did that job. And I thought he did a tremendous job of following the action, giving you, in the biggest moments, those reactions that were justified. And I thought that he did a great job of truly making you feel like you were part of that team. Now, it's different, right? Mike Gorman, he would lay out. He let the crowd speak for itself. Basketball is much different than hockey. I did a little play-by-play back in the day. I did football. I did basketball, men's and women's. Hockey is a very difficult sport to call. It's obviously super fast. The names are not easy. And so there's a heightened awareness when you're doing hockey. And I think Jack, his vocabulary, the way that he brought you, again, the biggest moments in the biggest ways. Did he get a little carried away? Absolutely. In my estimation, he did. He got a little carried away from time to time. Was he a homer? Yep, through and through. But he was the Bruins homer, right? And so I just want to thank Jack Edwards. And the most unfortunate thing, obviously, about all of this is, Mike Gorman went out on his terms. Mike went out the way he wanted to go out. He called it a career. When he thought he had done everything he wanted to do, he accomplished as much as he could. Jack's being forced out. And that's the most unfortunate part about this. Obviously, we've seen Jack the last couple of years go through what he's gone through physically. I can't imagine how it's been mentally for him. I can tell you that I had Bell's palsy years ago, and having Bell's palsy and trying to do a radio show at the time at 98.5 was a very difficult challenge, physically and mentally. And I knew what I was going through. I knew I had Bell's palsy. Jack says he has no idea what's going on. He's gone through tests. He's been at hospitals. He's seen countless doctors. And the fact that something he cannot and the doctors cannot put their finger on, the fact that that is taking away his love, his passion, the job that he absolutely would live and die for, the fact that that is being taken out of his hands is very difficult. It is a brutal end for him. And I thought he kept his head high, and I thought he made the right call. It was time to step away because he just cannot do that job at the level that he wants to do that job. But it sucks that it's been taken away from him outside of his control. So I wish Jack Edwards the best in his retirement. Hope he does well. All right, we'll see what happens. Game 7 tomorrow night. Oh, boy. I hope they come through. Celtics, by the way, if the Cleveland-Orlando series wraps up tonight, the Celtics will tip off at 1 p.m. on Sunday. If Orlando and Cleveland go to a Game 7, the Celtics play on Tuesday night. That's how it all works. All right, everybody have a great weekend. Get some cold beverages. Have some fun. Don't be knuckleheads. Don't get in trouble. But enjoy yourself this weekend. We're back on Monday, 11 a.m. sharp right here on YouTube for the Nick Cattle Show.